Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Hudak. I'm excited about maybe having a little more of a positive convo because, Maddy, as I've been known to be, I am a super positive, very optimistic, sky is blue, sun is shining type guy. That's how I'm known in these parts. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But let's talk about what went well for the Saints on Thursday night. Let's start offensively. We've highlighted all of the bad that Derek Carr did. Was there anything good?
I think if you look at the second half and you look at those final couple of touchdown drives, and you could definitely see, I think, a lot of the potential that we saw over training camp, seeing a little more of again, those routes that we were used to seeing, getting Alvin Kamara really involved in space. And early at that, it stuck out to me that they're really trying to work him in as a receiver early on in the game. And for what it's worth, I felt like the offensive line actually held up pretty well from start to finish in both the run and the pass. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities for Derek Carr to make plays. They weren't always necessarily capitalized on, be it the route, the play call, what have you, but it felt like less of an issue of the pocket just collapsing over and over again. And for all of the turnover that they kind of did on that line, and as much of a concern as it is about the development of rookie prospects on that line, it was at least good to see that and see them involve the tight ends and the 2-point conversion to Alvin Kamara towards the end of the game. It's one of those things you'd like to see them use more in the red zone more often. But again, nice to see that those plays do indeed exist.
To your point, only one sack and 2 TFLs for Jacksonville the entire game. So the line, in some respects, did hold up. Anybody in particular on the line grade particularly high?
The plays that I saw anything, it was honestly Andres Pete made a few key blocks. And I just felt like I keep going back to this whole, the offensive line working as a whole rather than the sum of its parts. And obviously everyone has to be performing at a certain level in order for that to work. But they did seem to move very fluidly. And again, both in pass protection and against the run. And, I looked at the rush yards for them to have more yards in the second half than Jacksonville did on the ground and in the first half at that, on top of adding 195 passing yards in the second half. It's a lot of offense, just unfortunately a little bit too little too late. And this would be a good game if it was week 4 per se, and you're still kind of getting those kinks figured out, but it's still just not enough promise, but definitely more than we've seen in these last couple games.
Maddy, you referenced some of the promise and hope and potential that we saw in the preseason with this offense. I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find if there are things offensively that suggest this thing is salvageable, that they can get it on track. I mean, you've got a $150 million albatross hanging around your neck in Derek Carr. So I've been asked, like, hey, do you think they're going to play Jameis? Well, no, they're not going to play Jameis because they've got so much invested in Derek Carr. They've got to make this work. So what did you see, if you can recall, in camp, right? What were the things that we were hoped for in camp that have sort of lost their way that maybe you think are salvageable right now, offensively?
And again, this would really be contingent on how they open up this next game, because I think the psychology of the game is slipping away from them. But I just swagger, for lack of a better term. It felt like Derek Carr just had a little bit more of a presence to him, just having more of a connection with Olave and Michael Thomas and them consistently getting those balls in camp. And even though it's training camp, you're still going up against a decent secondary in the Saints. And I say decent, I thought that they performed pretty well in this game. That was one of my other bright spots, was the play by the defensive backs. And so to see, Michael Thomas beat Marshawn Lattimore one-on-one in coverage, it gets you excited thinking that they'll kind of be able to do that as the season goes on. But it just doesn't feel, again, like the game plan is necessarily there. Like when Sean Payton was here, you knew that every week, even if it didn't work, at least there was an intention behind the game plan that was very specifically tailored to the opponent. That's something that just seems to be really lacking to me, is I don't feel like there's any noticeable, they did use more motion. I will say that. It didn't necessarily get them anywhere half the time, but at least now you could say that they have that tendency to be able to read the defense and have that tell from those motion plays. But it just, again, there is, to me, a disconnect between things that should be a little easier than this and then still seeing kind of those longer routes on those third and short plays, But at least again in this game, you saw a short route by Chris Olave, for example. So it's little things that are getting worked in, but just felt like a different identity in training camp. And the idea that Alvin Kamara would be suspended, but you had a really strong running back committee, or so you thought. And now it's kind of back to running Alvin Kamara up between the sticks quite a bit. But at least, again, to get him out in space, you just want to see them rely on guys like Michael Thomas and Chris Olave more. And to your point about Derek Carr, between the three of them, I don't know why, but it should work. And so you have a little hope there and saw them perform at the end of the game. But miscommunication can unfortunately kill a lot of things. And I just think it's all wrapped up in that.
Yeah, you mentioned the Kamara suspension. We saw Jamal Williams, of course, 5 rushes, just 14 yards. Not a great day for the guy that was one of your high-priced free agents. Maddy Hudak is with us. So you mentioned the secondary, another bright spot. Who or what stood out in the secondary for the Saints on Thursday night?
Initially, Marcus May quite a bit. I was paying attention to the coverage, and they were using a lot of cover 1 and switching in between, cover 4, cover 6, all in the first couple of series. And I mean, you have to really have a secondary that is all communicating on all cylinders in order to just kind of switch that frequently. But they were running a lot of balanced formations where you had to have someone in that kind of slot position on both sides. And I saw Marcus May going down there more often than not. And his reaction time as a safety just really paid off there. There was a stretch where Maddy was in. I can't remember if there was an injury to Alontae Taylor or anything at this point, because that game feels like so long ago by now. But it felt like the slot role wasn't as much of a sore point. And you had, a defensive pass interference call on Adebo. But I thought that his downhill tackling, his coverage, and just their ability to read and react in this game just seemed a lot quicker than usual. And that, to me, is where you see the rollover effect of Marcus May being out last year, him being suspended earlier this season. None of these guys really getting that much time together. And I felt like Tyrann Mathieu has really stepped up this season as a leader back there. And I think you really saw that all come together in that backfield. And especially against, I know Trevor Lawrence was injured, but he's still a really good quarterback. And to hold them to 71 passing yards in the second half, that's putting their offense in a position to win the football game.
Man, the Saints forced 2 turnovers, but get just 3 points off those 2 turnovers. You're right. There's a lot of reasons we've all tried to forget that game on Thursday, but sort of looking forward at what might have gone well. I could bring up Blake Grupe. I don't know that people have much of a great thought on him right now. And to see Will Lutz have the day he did in Denver is like a double swift kick in the lower region. Anything there that on any of the special teams units that maybe stood out that could be a positive for this team?
Well, like you said, the fumble recovery that Lonnie Johnson got that gave him that opportunity, because they had just capitalized, or they hadn't capitalized on the forced fumble on the Christian Kirk play right before that. The offense went 3 and out, and it's still, to get 2 turnovers and only get 3 points out of it. But that's oftentimes, again, if you had a team that was executing just a little better on offense, those kind of turnovers on special teams can oftentimes make the difference. Again, the surprise onside kick that Sean Payton ran. Tulane just had to deal with this surprise onside kick this last weekend, and the other team ended up with a 14-21 point run as a result. So it's all 3 phases of the game trying to kind of work there and give them that opportunity. But I think it's a case of the yips. Unless there's an injury that we're unaware of, I think that's kind of the psychology of the kicker position, and it's just a much higher spotlight on it when, you got rid of Will Lutz and went with the undrafted rookie. But the kicker has just kind of been an issue for the Saints the last couple of seasons, because Will Lutz was unhealthy, and then that year was like, it was the Blake Rojas year where they had like 4 different kickers and lost 2 games due to missed field goals. But it doesn't feel the same way, at least now, where Blake Grupe has missed some key field goals, but at the end of the day, if it has to come down to 3 points here and there, then the offense is just simply not executing. And again, when you have 2 turnovers and you're only able to get 3 points off of that, it's hard to, again, put that much blame on the kicker situation. But it definitely deserves, again, that level of spotlight because of the decision to go with these undrafted guys. And Lou Hedley's been a little here and there. It just hasn't necessarily worked out the way they wanted to, but it's definitely not the reason that the Saints are losing these games.
Maddy, if there's one thing that's maybe the most reason for optimism, as bad as it's been, they're 1 game out of first place. That's the benefit of playing in a terrible division, which is what the Saints are right now. We'll keep paying attention. Maddy Hudak on Twitter at MaddyHudak_94. Y'all give her a follow. Maddy, we appreciate it. Thanks so much as always for the time.
Thank you. Hopefully a better time next week, but we'll see.
Please. We all need some good vibes. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.